So we will need the time we have. But I also want to make sure to honor space for you all to ask questions. And so we'll leave a little bit of room for that in the end. But along the way, if there are any burning questions, thank you so much. Feel free to raise your hand along the way, okay? So that we can have the open space to go ahead and connect the next way. So it's a little love story of me finding my way here to the Assisi Institute. But if you're curious about that, we'll save that for the Q&A part 2, okay? What I would like to open with is that this is, of sacred spaces, this is my most sacred space. So to be here with kindred spirits, talking about my absolute favorite topic in the whole universe is what joy is for me. So thank you for your presence, for your hearts. Okay, I think a good way to start is to share with you a cute little email that I received just a couple of days ago. It was this enthusiastic Ayurveda potential client saying, I am very eager to learn the principles of Ayurveda, but I'm already upset about the fact that you're going to make me stop eating my ice cream and my chocolate. So this darling person reminded me of that very difficult client back in the early starting point. Those of you who are service providers, you know who your very difficult client was, right? Right? So with her, it was more along the lines of, I am instantly humbled by having found that which I've been looking for all my life. And I had been digging for quite some time, since very, very early on. And yet, there's no way on earth that anyone is going to make me give up my fill in the blanks, right? So, in other words, the resistance was very strong. And the passion, the desire was also very strong. So this dynamic required that I take a step back. So even though I had at that, around that time, recognizing my unwillingness to adhere to the practices that I was so deeply moved by, to set aside all that I had learned in my clinical years. I went all the way to the top of the first school here in the West. So set aside the herbal formulas that I was having so much fun with, set aside all the diagnostics of East and West, set aside the beautiful philosophy, and really dig my heels into the foundation of this wisdom. In fact, I went back to school and repeated year 1, just so that I could really steep myself in that. And fortunately, that did it. Little by little, one simple practice at a time, a simple practice that was founded in the basic common sense practices that were offered by Ayurveda. The windows begin to open, the fresh air began to come in, and that resistance, or that need to hold on to the ways that I did things, began to lose its grip. And so even more delightful than the ice cream and the chocolate became the recognition that I was no longer moved towards a lifestyle or doing things in ways that were not of the greatest support for me. And so what I have to offer each of you here today is a bit of a blossoming and opening of that foundation, with the hopes that you will take home one practice, just one, that appeals to you at this time, that makes sense in your current circumstances, and that seems to be something that will be helpful, of use to you, to the whole of you. Okay? Does that sound doable? Okay? Is that a yes? Okay. So now that we're connecting, let me just kind of get a sense of where you're at. For those of you who are brand new to Ayurveda, who were not here last year either, what is your curiosity about yoga's sister science, if any? If you like to just raise your hand and say it, just make sure, recognize that there are folks on this side of the room, so your voice kind of has to project on out and over, but it would be so lovely and informative to have you share your curiosity about being here, for those of you now who have really no knowledge of Ayurveda whatsoever.
I am curious. Someone did work with me during COVID on the internet, so, however that is. But the Pitta or Pitta?
Pitta?
Yeah, Pitta, Vata, and Kapha. I'm curious, my most energetic, where am I?
How those three energies play out in you. Fun, good times. All right. Anything else? Anybody else? Curiosities about Ayurveda. How the three doshas interplay in you.
How would it work with women who might be in different stages of growing in their life, like 30s to 50s to 60s?
Absolutely. The phases of life and the three energetics.
What system and everything?
I'll be happy to cover that. And if I don't, you catch me again at the Q&A moment, okay? But I'll keep a note on that. Any other curiosity?
When you're a combination, how do you know, like, how to, which?
Yes, that is so tricky. Such a good question. We'll definitely cover that. When you're a combination of, by the way, you're all three doshas, in case, make it even more complicated. You're three, but yes, and we'll bring shed some light into that. Any other curiosity?
There's a preventive aspect to things with your health with Ayurveda, but if something does happen to you, or if the problem has Ayurveda from healing.
Beautiful question. Let's see how far we can get with that today. And I do believe that by just accessing the foundation, that answer comes to you directly, just as you need to, Stephanie. We'll see. Anything else? Curiosities? All right then, to those of you who do have have dipped your toes in Ayurveda a little bit, whether or not you were here last year, what is Ayurveda? What is it? There's no wrong here, right? We're all exploring together. What is Ayurveda? What does the word even mean? It's a big word, isn't it?
Ayu means life. And Veda is knowledge, the knowledge of life.
The wisdom, the knowledge of life itself. Kind of vast, right? Any other considerations as to what Ayurveda is, what it means, or how it plays out in the Kriya Yoga lifestyle. At the very top of the page, please. Thank you.
Third part taught that all parts of creation are linked together and interchange their influences.
Beautiful. Would you care to also share that very first sentence that comes right beneath it?
All things in the material world are lives of the same set of qualities,
All right.
giving us the visceral experience of these as our five organs of perception.
So qualities and gunas, these two words are used interchangeably. All matter of things, including this matter that with this container that we come in, they are made up of 20 gunas, 20 qualities. Back in the early days, the ancient rishis, supposedly the ancient sages, they understood, they related with the world based on the qualities of things. You pick up a heavy rock and you go, oh, there's got to be a lot of the earth element here. You brush up against a feather, you go, oh, there must be a lot of the air element in here. It is light and it's soft. Similarly, because we too are matter, you come upon these beautiful talks that you have had these past few days where there's so much clarity in what is being shared. You know that there is the influence of the fire element in there. You listen to Swami sharing about the mantras and chanting for you, and you have this feeling that you're just being held by pure compassion. That's because there's a lot of the water element influence in that. And so as we begin to explore the world through these eyes of gunas, qualities, we begin to relate with it a little bit differently than the terms that we currently use to identify things, such as I am diagnosed with this, and so therefore that, right? And so on and so forth. It brings us a little bit closer to our nature, to our actual makeup. So this bit on the 5 organs of perception is that it's through them, through our ability to smell things, to taste things, to see things, to touch things, to hear things, that we can experience these qualities. And that is important information because as we recognize that some qualities may be taking us out of balance, then we begin to bring qualities that are of the opposite nature to restore balance. More on this in a little bit. I'll keep weaving that in because that's really the law of nature that is at the core of Ayurveda. So when you give your attention to the sense of smell, you begin to come to know the earth element. So when you go out in nature, today we had a little bit of rain, yesterday as well. So when you go out there and you can smell the fragrance of nature, what's the physiological effect that that has on you? How does that impact you? Especially if your mind had been very active, moving quite a bit. I think I suggested that on Tuesday morning. Did anybody take me up on the walk in nature to dissipate a little bit of all the excess movement of receiving things? Anybody? Okay, yes. So if you are preparing a meal and you really give your attention to the sense of smell while preparing that meal, will that have an impact on how you digest that food, regardless of the gunas, the qualities of the food itself? It's an interesting experiment that I will offer you to take home. Through the sense of taste, we come to know the water element. How curious is it that when you are diving into your potato chips or whatever other salty thing that you dig, that you just keep wanting more? And how interesting is it that when you have something astringent, like a salad, you feel satiated. It's like it feels complete. No need for more. You don't keep munching on dry salad, right? Or just astringent salad. What is that all about? The salt taste carries quite a bit of water, and so it produces saliva. And so the saliva is informing us, oh yes, more food, please. The astringent taste says, I'm satiated, it's all done, kind of like complete, move on to the next thing. In fact, Ayurveda encourages us to have that salad at the end of the meal for that very reason. Through the sense of sight, we come to know the fire element. Is it not remarkable that this brain, 50% of this equipment that we have here is used to interpret information visually? 50%. So our eyes are extremely busy. These organs of perception, for the most part, for those of us who spend time on the devices all day long and have noise come around that we don't know what it's about and are always concerned and trying to figure out what that is, they're tired. They're tired. So they need to restore. So if you don't already have a practice of gazing at a candle after many hours on your device, consider taking on a practice such as that and see how it will repair your eyes, not just prevent. That I know for sure. Through the sense of touch, we come to know the air element. So in my native tongue, there's the sweetest song that says, I'm not going to sing it to you right now, no worries, that the wind is the temperament of air. Like these warmer days, isn't it incredibly soothing to be in a more trees, surrounded by more trees, and then catch that cool breeze coming to cool you off? And what about the visceral sensation of the windshield effects that we get here in Eskimo land in the strong winter days? Both are felt, experienced by the largest organ in our body, right? But in very different ways. Very different ways. So having that curiosity, how is this, which I'm in contact with, impacting my system, my nervous system, and so on? Through the sense of hearing, we come to know about ether, the most subtle, the formless element that contains all form, that contains all the others. Ether, also known as space. And so this, so subtle it is that it is through hearing that we can experience the primordial sound. And how curious that the ears, if you didn't know this, our ears, through the vagus nerve, are connected to every single organ in our bodies. So when we receive magical music, such as was played for us in the beginning of our meditation today, it's touching every organ. It's soothing everything at the deepest level. When you learn mantra, when you bring your chant out into all that you do, I often do, then that can have, see, and then there's the noise. So moving on, I think it's time to move on. Unless there's any burning questions, this would be a good time to take a burning question related to the organs of perception. Anything? So who would be so kind as to read our next quote?
In our human aspect, we have to contend with two kinds of forces. Those in our mind, body, constitution, caused by the mixed attributes of earth, water, fire, air, and ethereal elements, and those of our outer nature.
So this mind-body constitution, that's what the three doshas are, right? And then there are combinations of these three doshas, which come from the 5 elements, which come from the 20 gunas. This is the world as we see it in terms of matter. This is Sankhya philosophy. So I am going to, first let me just highlight something that I briefly mentioned earlier. You are all 3 doshas. All 3 doshas are in you. And there's not one of you that have the exact same combination of these 3 doshas. So the question earlier about what do I do when I have 2 dosha types is really, she's really referring to primary doshas. What do I do then? Primary doshas. So we'll address this as well. Let me begin with the Pitta dosha since it's summertime. The Pitta dosha is really the fire element primarily, with a little bit of the water element. It's the energy that transforms all things. So it's the engine. Because you think energy is more like, transformative, but this is the engine. This is the one that's really going to assimilate. Like it governs metabolism, but not just metabolism in the sense of your physical Agni, digestion, but in terms of all the Agnis, all the ways in which you perceive and receive things is related to, like, this information that you're receiving right now and making sense of it in the way that you are is because of the Pitta dosha. How your body's processing what you just had for lunch is because of the Pitta dosha. Okay? So, in the summertime, because the sun which is obviously more pitta, right? Or maybe I shouldn't say obviously. Sun is more pitta, is more fire. There is a greater chance that that heat will accumulate and turn into excess. Well, what happens to someone who is primarily pitta dosha and is in excess? There may be skin rashes, there may be irritation, lack of patience, perhaps even some anger. There may be some loose stools. There may be some acid reflux. And this pitta dosha, since you asked about the phase of life, the time of life, is really that time between puberty and for a woman is like the end of her menstruation cycle. For all of us is that more productive time of life. It's the let me go and conquer the world time of life. And it's also between 10 and 2 in the daytime because the sun is closer. Okay? Therefore, in a lot of cultures, certainly the culture that I come from, that largest meal of the day is eaten during that time of day, around noon, when the Agni out there is stronger. Make sense? So then how do we balance the pitta dosha? Hold on to that. We will come back. Commercial break. Does anybody need to get up and stretch a little bit? Don't be shy from doing that. Yeah, like whatever you need to just come back to here, do it. Yeah, it's better to take a moment away and miss a little something that I said and then be able to come back. So honor that need. And then there's a burning question back there. Agni, oh, great question. It is the fire it's that which digests. Mostly known as fire.
Thank you for my question. Sometimes thinking about what I'm trying to do that is get myself with you catabolize my environment. Makes it Does that sound?
Wait, say that again.
Or you catabolize our environment.
We metabolize our environment, or we don't.
Or we don't? What happens if we don't eat better, right?
So to the degree that we metabolize and we digest, we assimilate, there is no what we call amma, buildup of toxins. To the degree that we don't, there's amma, buildup of toxins. How that is expressed in the digestion is surely different than how that's expressed in the psyche. But nevertheless, that which is not processed, digested, will accumulate. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. Okay, so we're going to come back to how to make pitta balanced, but now we're going to dip our toes on the next season, which will soon come, autumn, as we see beautiful leaves turning colors, then giving away, and then the reminder that nature says it's time to turn inwardly. So this is vata dosha. As where pitta transforms things, vata dosha moves them, spreads them, seeds them. And it is primarily made out of air and ether. When the vata dosha is in excess, there's too much air in the belly, bloating. There's too much dryness, not just in the outer skin, but inside too. So there's constipation. There's excess movement of the mind that causes what? Being too far forward in the future, too much any place but where the mind really says, no, I cannot be here and now. So there's anxiety, worry, overwhelm, and so on and so forth. The time of life of Vata is that phase post-menopause, around menopause, premenopause, and so on for women. Men have that too. It's just we don't call it that. The time of day is from 2 to about 6 p.m. or 2 to about 6 a.m. So when you have more of the social type of gatherings where there's more movement, desire to speak, so communication is very much related to Vata dosha, that's a good place to put it in. And then those of you who are wondering, why is it that now as I'm coming into that later Vata phase of life, I'm starting to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, even though I still want to be sleeping, is because the 4 o'clock in the morning is calling you for Vata, for movement, for perhaps now taking on your meditation level to that deeper place. So how do we restore Vata balance? Okay. We'll keep the suspense going here, just so I make sure that I have to have some opposition to your siesta time, right? Any burning questions about Vata before we move on? We're good? So that leaves us with winter and spring. Kapha dosha. So now you have the energy that gathers. Just like late winter, the snow begins to accumulate, and then early spring, the snow begins to melt. Kapha is primarily water and earth. So it's heavier in its qualities, in its gunas, than is the Pitta and the Vata. And that shows in the form. You saw here earlier that the doshas are conditioned that provide form and function to all things, right? So it shows in form. One who is more predominantly Kapha will have thicker skin, stronger bones, thicker hair than the other two doshas, because they have more of those heavier elements in them. When out of balance, the Kapha person becomes lethargic. Stagnation is like, when too much water, too much earth, mud, right? So it's like that muddy kind of feeling. It shows up in the psyche as something like depression or melancholy, and it shows up in the physical body as perhaps edema or holding on to excess weight. So the Kapha phase of life is the early stage, because Kapha is about storing energy, right? So in the early days, the baby's drinking a lot of milk, right? The baby has delicious cheeks to be squeezed, right? You see their hands have more of that earth and water in them. The time of day is then from 6 until 10. This is why those who tend to want to hug that pillow in the morning will find it more difficult as the morning progresses, because comes 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, there's even more buildup of Kapha. And so making it that that transition into let me take on the day even less likely to happen. Okay, you have been so very patient. Now we will address the three ways, the how to balance the three doshas. So, everybody excited? Have your ears? So, with Ayurveda, we have this understanding that there are three pillars that hold up everything that is your lifestyle. In other words, the stuff that you do from morning to night, including night. Everything that you do is placed on these three pillars. Our job is to take a look at the pillars every so often and say which one is in need of repair. And if you say all three, you have to revisit that. Can't be all three. You can't juggle three balls. I'm sorry. Remember my story in the beginning? It's really one step at a time. It's really basic foundations. It's just which is the one that needs the most repair at this time. And then it's about picking out a routine that will support that one pillar until you see that one pillar begin to gain its strength. Then you can go ahead and address the other one. Okay? That's still not addressing the thing about dual dosha, but we'll get there too. So one of these pillars is ahara. Ahara, the word means that which we take in. Typically, it's viewed as food. So you see here that I have ahara under the pitta dosha. Not because food or that which we take in only belongs with pitta, no, but just for the purposes of us touching at least a little bit on each of the doshas with the little bit of time that we have. So, back to what we can digest. If your digestion is working well, you're good to go. Because disease, according to Ayurveda, outside of the mind, it begins in the mind, but in the physical body begins in digestion. Okay? So, if you are curious, interested in beginning to explore your digestion a little bit more closely, other than just going, okay, well, I'm not feeling bloated, I'm not feeling nausea, then it should be okay, is look at your tongue first thing in the morning. If you don't already have a tongue scraper, it is such a must that I will give you one. I have it on the resources there. I have you. Tongue scraper, email me. I will send you one at no cost because this is something essential to have. People sometimes tell me, I don't need a tongue scraper. I'm brushing my teeth, my tongue with my toothbrush. You're pushing the toxins in even further. Don't do that anymore. Okay? Sorry. By the way, that which you don't know doesn't harm you so much. You know that, right? It's one of the three causes of disease according to Ayurveda, in fact. So check, yes. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so then you could just have one today. You don't have to wait. Beautiful. Claudia.
Question about the tongue scraper.
Yes.
One that you gave me is metal,
Yes.
and I only ever used one made of wood before.
Made of wood. How cool.
Wood. I'm a very thin, also wood type.
I love it.
Which, do you think there's a...
Just for hygiene purposes, I don't know how your wood one would hold up after some time. That's the only concern that I have. But
using Listerine on it,
and I gave you a metal one. Use the metal one. And keep the wood one for look. It's cool. That's really cool. For special holidays. So by looking at your tongue, not today, we're not going to discover this. This takes some time to learn, but it's something that you will learn over time by looking at your tongue every day before you remove. By the way, this is how you remove the ama, the toxins that are on the surface of the tongue, so that you can then begin digestion better, because all the digestive enzymes that are there in your tongue are then going to be clear and more receptive to what you are taking in. So through your tongue, you can see which dosha is out of balance. So now back to that beautiful question. How do I handle imbalances when I'm primarily two different doshas? You handle the imbalance at this time. You're not out of balance in two primary doshas. You are two primary doshas, but one of those two doshas is in need of more attention. And so that's the one that you cater to. Is that helpful? That's the one. And then once that's stabilized, then you come back to having a routine that takes both into consideration based on your food choices and so on. Okay? So yeah, Ahara, the number one thing to take home about Ahara is, how is my digestion working? And then maybe keeping a digestion journal. I noticed that there's like some scallops, some like wiggly things around the edges of my tongue, and I did not notice this all of the last, let's just say you've been doing this for a month now. All of last month, what's going on? Well, that's malabsorption. So then you know, for some reason, you're not absorbing things so well. Oh, I noticed that there's a lot of whiting, coating that is white on over my tongue. Oh yeah, I haven't had ice cream in a long time, and yesterday I really indulged in that. So you begin to communicate with that which is very precious to you. Does that make sense? Because it concerns me that sometimes people look at Ahara and then they go, I am a dual dosha, and therefore I have to each day balance out this crazy list of the foods that I can eat from this dosha, the foods that I can eat from this dosha, and then it's no wonder that I walk away thinking, Ayurveda is too complicated, forget about it, right? That's not necessary. It's not necessary. Stick with the basics. Something is not well, then let's look back and see what it is that I am taking in that is not well. It could very well be that the foods that you're eating are not at all an issue for you, but it's the watching the news while you're eating your food and absorbing all that hatred or that heat or that indigestion while you're taking in the food, right? So much more to say about Ahara, but we will move on, yes, to Nidra. Nidra, this pillar, many of you have heard of Yoga Nidra, right? Mukchima teaches a beautiful practice of Yoga Nidra. Many of you are familiar and have experienced that before. It's yogic sleep. It's a tremendous opportunity to quiet down the nervous system, to turn inwardly and to perhaps get even better rest than you would with your full 7 hours of sleep or so. So this Nidra pillar, so again, I want you to think in terms of pillar that holds up all the activities that you do. This Nidra pillar needs to be addressed when you are what? Depleted, right? When you're exhausted. Because obviously you're not getting the rest that is necessary. Even though any of the three doshas can have challenges in the Nidra side, the Kapha dosha's challenge will be more related to wanting to sleep longer than they need to because of the earth and the water that's in them, as where the Pitta person will sleep okay, but they may wake up at that 2 o'clock in the morning hour problem solving, right? Because that's the Pitta time. But the Vata person, sleep is really not in their nature. They're light. They are on the move. It's not so natural for them to ground. And so for those who have more of the Vata nature in them or are in the Vata phase of life, it is particularly valuable to take on evening practices that prepare one for good rest. So we all know now that circadian rhythms became very, very popular in the West, so much so that there were even awards given and to research that shows the value, how essential it is to pay attention to the cycles of light and dark. So perhaps we begin to dim down the lights at a certain time. Perhaps we begin to say goodbye to the devices at a certain time, and we shift gears to the books and the candles and so on. And most importantly, if Nidra is a pillar that needs support, that we get up with the sun. Even if we're really tired because we were up all night, because we couldn't sleep well, if we just get in that rhythm of getting up with the sun, exposing ourselves to sunlight first thing in the morning so that we can reestablish that natural cycle of sleep. For the Vata dosha, again, because they have this very airy nature, it's a really good idea to add some oils to their skin to ground them more. During this time of year where it's so hot, perhaps it's coconut oil so that it's got a cooling effect, putting at the sole of the feet, putting it also in the head. There's a very precious little marma point here at the top of the head. If you take this part of the wrist and place it right at the top of the ridge of the nose, and then where your middle finger lands, that's the area of your fontanelle. And if you can just circle gently around that. Remember this spot that was soft when you were a baby? Just circle there because you have a beautiful connection here for calming, for unwinding, for dissolving the excess movement of the mind. And then take the wrist to where that middle finger was, and then place all your other 5 fingers behind it as where they would naturally land. Here, let me show you like this, yeah? And then just rock your head a little bit back and forth, like you're rocking a baby. And release. If you have some frankincense at home or other holy grounding oils, you can add that as well there. So that's your Nidra pillar. Of course, much more to say. Any burning questions about that? Good? All right, so then that leaves us with Brahmacharya. So Brahmacharya, we relate Brahmacharya with living the life of the Brahma, right? And rightfully so. It's our way of, the actual word means to return to your true nature, to that spark of light that is there, that is in you. And what Ayurveda is suggesting us do for this pillar is not necessarily this aspiration to become a Brahma, but to manage our energy, manage our life force so that if we are Vata, we don't become depleted, so that if we are Pitta, we don't become burned out, and so that if we are Kapha primarily, we don't get too stagnant, too comfortable. So we manage our energies, our input and output. So I put it here with the Kapha person because the Kapha person is the one who most needs to expand some of their energy. They have the most because they tend to store right? So the kapha person could run a marathon if they wanted to, right? Provided the joints are good and everything, they have that kind of stamina. But the vata is the one who wants to do it. Because she wants movement or he wants movement, right? And so it's really important that the kapha person establishes a routine with the help maybe of the pitta person who's going to knock on their door at 5 o'clock in the morning and say, let's go for that run, to get the body moving so that they don't become stagnant. Okay, so that's so we can see this pillar on the more in the more immediate sense as, how am I managing my energy? And if there's some tweaks that need to take place there, then what are the routines? What is it that I'm going to establish in order for that to be better supported? Okay. So again, the brahmacharya is one that, of course, the pillar works with all three doshas, any balance or imbalance. And so is the same with the nidra, and so it is also with ahara. Okay? And in terms of the three doshas, all things in life have the three doshas in them. Every cell in our bodies has the three doshas in them. You most likely than not have a combination of two primary doshas, although you may be just very strong in one, or you may even be strong in all three. It is all possible. But what is very helpful for you to know is to observe the dosha that is out of balance at this time. As I mentioned earlier, certain things in our environment will impact, or even as Roy Eugene Davis puts so beautifully up here in the other note, will impact. So would anyone be so kind as to read the third quote here by Paramahansa Yogananda?
I'm doing it. The laws of life can teach us to live in harmony with nature and all aspects of life. When we know what the laws are, conduct ourselves, and accord with them, we experience lasting happiness, good health, and perfect harmony.
And if you look into the ancient texts of Ayurveda written thousands of years ago, it's very much word per word of what Yogananda shares here. I would like to offer you, in case nothing has really gelled for you so far, that you give me your attention now. Because now I'm going to give you that little gem that you can really take home with you, provided you're present and ready for it. Okay? There is a law of nature that says, like qualities, by qualities again I mean the gunas, right? The heavy rock, the light feather, the fiery temperament versus the watery temperament. Like qualities increase qualities. Opposite qualities balance one another. And by balance, I mean they restore harmony. So right now it's summertime, and you are very much attached to your spicy foods, right? No, not anymore. I learned better now. But, I was mentioning the chocolate and the ice cream, for me it was so much more like the heat and the movement, yeah? So you're very much attached to that. So then you're just going to go ahead and you're going to add the jalapenos to your lunch, and you're sitting out there in the sunshine and you're sweating. That's going to increase the inflammation, the skin rashes, the irritation, the lack of patience, right? Does that make sense? like increases like. If, however, you choose to instead have a mint tea separate from your meal, you choose to add some cumin, coriander to the spices of that you're cooking with. These are cooling spices. You choose to go in the moonlight for a little swim and be more playful with the kids as opposed to all the intensity that you may have been otherwise allured by. Then those things will reestablish balance. Again, the pitta balance is what? It's very clear, is very discerning. So my invitation to you, if nothing else, is that you just consider the qualities that you come upon, the qualities most pronounced in you at this moment for whatever reason, how they're interacting with one another, and what simple little choices you can make to make it less likely that like qualities will increase like, and make it more likely that opposite qualities will balance one another. So that's really the invitation of Ayurveda. That is why I went back to the basics. That is why for the last 23 years of my life, I have been humbled by it and grateful beyond words, for it's given me more than I could ever have dreamt of. And it is why I feel, or not just that I feel, but that I recognize how essential it is that those of us who seek, who make this commitment to the spiritual practice, that we are also giving enough attention to the care of the body and mind. Originally, Ayurveda and yoga, in this case, Kriya Yoga, were always intended to walk hand in hand. Yoga, the science, the wisdom, the knowledge of spirituality. Ayurveda, the science, the wisdom, the knowledge of care for the body, the mind, and emotions. Always together, never apart. So I will say right now, you have just enough time to ask me any questions that you would like. And if I have not answered what was asked before, I think that, you had a question like, well, how do I know which dosha I am? I will tell you, oh yeah, I actually put here on the resources for you to send me an email if you want a dosha test, I think. Yes, dosha test. Send me an email and I'll send you the dosha test. But less of value to you than finding out your dosha type through the dosha test. More of value to you, forgive me, is that you just really play with this exploration that I shared before about this dance of opposite qualities balancing one another, and observing that in yourself, and then allowing yourselves the freedom to discover your own dosha type through your own body-mind type through this process, as opposed to having something tell you so quickly. Yes, but either way, I understand we're curious beings. We're lovely that way, right? So but take it with a grain of salt. Don't be so concerned that, oh, okay, this is what I am, and therefore, no, you are all things, and you're always changing, and it's just interesting opportunity to do that dance a little bit. So is that helpful? Yeah?
I have a question. I'm a Pitta Vata dosha, a lot of Pitta, and
So you're Pitta Vata, but primarily Pitta.
yeah,
Gotcha.
and I put off a lot of heat. Like the nice thing is I hardly ever get cold, but I just radiate a ton of heat. I've tried cooling herbs, I've tried things like that, and nothing has helped.
Yeah. Or that strong, fiery engine it is difficult. You're saying primarily during the summertime or all times, even in the winter? All the time. And you've tried cooling herbs. And have you done any work with your solar plexus, like resting the solar plexus, resting in a prone position while in shavasana? Spending more time with the water in general, or having more water around you, waterfall, little water fountain around you, cooling things that are not so much just what you're eating, but so it would be interesting for someone who is experiencing a lot of heat and they've already done so, like really with the food is the first thing to do, right? And then that you sip on a cooling tea or water throughout the day. That's in your. Do you do that? So you're already covered there. Yeah, that's.
I live by the ocean.
You do. Okay.
A cool, very mild climate.
Okay.
I'm drinking it.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Okay. This is wonderful. See, and then there's that too. Wow. How about, yes, I would say definitely spending more time then considering the activity of the mind that generates more heat. And considering how you can still get things done, Mr. Pitta, but with a more relaxed attitude. And just.
Patient has brought it down.
Sure.
Probably like an 8.
Got it.
The intensity level has come down quite a bit.
Got it. Yeah. So because it all begins in the mind impact has such a subtle but significant effect, we may not be aware of the tape that's playing there that's causing heat. Right? So you're really invested in your work, but then you do shift gears and you go to the ocean. But perhaps there's still, like that computer is still running, perhaps. I'm not saying that that's the case, but to consider how to really shift gears more often, how to take micro breaks in your day. Micro breaks where the mindset is one of the work is done. The work is done. And how that may even make you more efficient, perhaps. I don't know. Something to explore. I'd love to hear how it goes and continue this conversation. Yeah. Because it seems to me like you're already doing a lot of wonderful things. Cooling coconut oil at the base of the soles of your feet and at the fontanelle area would also be of great benefit. Oil, cooling oil inside the ears as well, and your nose as well. And to do ganducha, to do a mouthwash with coconut oil. So getting the cooling in all the ways that you can. Yeah. Yeah. But when we find that, I'm doing all these practices and still not budging, notice the activity of the mind. Is it of a heating nature? How can I make it more cooling, or vice versa? Okay, question.
This is new to me. I've been curious. Give a recommendation for learning more from the resources for a new person. What would you recommend?
The first thing I would recommend is go into the bookstore and pick up the book by Roy Eugene Davis, because you're going to find a beautiful weaving together with the Kriya Yoga path. So that's going to give you a lot, and I would say, and he has all these little exercises that you can do too. So that would be my first thing to do. Was it overwhelming for you today, this talk?
I get a clearer understanding of what it is about.
Ooh, I'm so glad.
And of course, I'm assuming that it is largely a vegetarian lifestyle.
It's a holistic lifestyle. So it's really about what serves the needs of the moment. Yeah. There are exceptions to being a vegan and vegetarian for certain basic needs. So it's more of it's looking at you as the whole, and what is needed. Yeah.
Shelley, when I started free yoga like years ago, I was new to that thing. So I had to learn reading, learning those things and remembering to do all that. All these years later now, I feel like there's a lot of intuitiveness. If I could meditate, it's like my body intuitively knows how to do breathing from a chair. I'm not having to remember, right?
Sure.
So my question to you is, if we practice this over time, does it become more intuitive, the choices that you're making, the foods, like, so it's not so much trying to figure things out at the beginning. It feels like when Sharon is saying, this is a lot, or it's new, and if you're trying to keep track in a way, I almost want to like have that write it down, like a notebook or something. But I know all this time that I practice my Kriya, meditation and free practices, it's really sweet to be able to have an intuitiveness. Is that something that you look forward to on this path?
Stephanie, thank you so much for this dear question, because it is challenging to consider taking something on when life is already so full. And how much I wish to give you the reassurance that absolutely yoga and Ayurveda have the same intention, which is for us to remember our true nature, for us to remember that we are a spark of the divine. So it is all intuitive. And getting started requires that we rewire a little bit of what we have grown accustomed to doing, to seeing.
Yeah.
We're not.
I feel like listening to you today, I feel like it's about relearning what I somehow already knew, but I forgot. Like gunas, you've known it for a long time. You knew this when you came in, but then life had forget. Right? It's like,
I know, I cry too. I cry too, my love. Yes. It is. It is. It is. And the reason why I shared you that story in the beginning is that don't make a big thing of it. Just like how it started for you with your meditation, or how it may be starting for you with your meditation. It's one conscious breath. It's not the 3-hour long sit that you do. It's just that, but it's that each day. Right? Yes, actually, Claudia first.
I'm sitting here taking this around whether maybe this is more of a, I should ask you outside of here, but something really big has just occurred to me.
Okay.
Medical history,
Okay.
all the surgeries, and ovaries that coming back out from under, affecting my doshas and which ones are most active and how they're balanced when, and there are great 4 or 5 year periods of time where there's no vertigo. So I get the balance more easily. There are times when I feel crazy because right now I know that my vata is out of control, whereas a while ago it was picked up. And I think this makes it more complicated. It's more about.
So Claudia's question is so relevant for all of us. Surgeries or not, when we go through change, when there's trauma in our lives, there is vata in excess. So that is the dosha that needs to be addressed. How do we address vata dosha? I think I emphasized the need for routines. So maybe you just start with that evening routine to prepare you for sleep. Even if it doesn't work at first, start with that evening routine. Give that some time to establish, to ground the excess vata. It will. It will. And hopefully there'll be no more surgeries.
Julie's still time for the ongoing
Oh, time frame for staring at a candle. You know, the idea of doing tratak, this candle gazing, is that you are not blinking. So it may very well be that you can only do it for a few moments, but then you build up on it. A 20-minute practice would be magnificent if you can build up to that. Okay? In a dark room. In a dark room, yes. Yes. That is the focal point of your attention. To cleanse, to calm, yeah. And you blink the eyes, and in the beginning you're like, well, I'm blinking the eyes right away, so how am I even going to begin to establish a practice? You blink the eyes, you close your eyes, you rest there for a moment, you open, you start again. You close, you open, you start again, like that, okay?
I wasn't clear on what she was referring to.
She was talking about gazing at a candle so that you can rejuvenate the tired eyes.
So, it sounds a little bit, and I may be wrong, but that this implies needing to cook and figure out spices and things like that, but I don't cook, and I don't really enjoy playing around with that. So is this a possible thing to, buy at the grocery store?
I love it. I love it. I love it. That was part of my resistance in the beginning too. And then I too felt like, well, okay, well, it's all or nothing. I'm not going to become a cook tomorrow. Therefore, I would just, enjoy the philosophy for what it is, but not really be a part of it. So my answer to you is no. You don't need to learn how to cook. I am not going to promise you that you're not going to start to want to cook. Meanwhile, a neighbor can make some wholesome food for you and you can purchase it from them. Meanwhile, you can bless whatever food that you are about to ingest. You can have that kind of care with ahara without having to touch the pan. Okay? Much less know which kind of spices to add to your food. Christiani. Sure. Oh, lovely.
I'm just curious, is we that's responsible for the influence?
How do you mean clueless?
Well, just coming here and being here for 3 days and I don't think that here as well. I'm very happy to set a late bloomer in terms of work and relationships. These are coming together.
Isn't it beautiful? I too feel like I'm a late bloomer, and I kind of love that because it gives me a sense. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. It gives me a sense that all that we have done without kind of being clueless comes together as part of the right. So it's just it's so lovely of. It's all now, right? Now is now. And so here we are. So thank you for sharing. Yeah.
So I'm going into Furnace Man.
Oh, Furnace Man. Yes. Furnace Man. You're too, Furnace Woman. Oh my goodness. Turn up the heat.
It's like, I do, cucumber water.
Beautiful.
That helps.
Yes, it does.
That'd be okay to let that man know, like, using cucumber water.
Let's tell him about cucumber water. Yes.
And, there's also cooling spots right on our elbow and on our wrist.
That I did not know.
And that's when you get really hot, and you put like an ice cube or something in between your elbows.
Marma points that. Ooh, I love it.
And also, I might be, like sometimes I'll fill my tub up with cold water and just kind of get in there with the feces, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Playtime, but I
Uh,
don't know.
no. This is so great because, thank you. More tips for him?
Yeah.
Those are great. Yes, there will be certain spots in your body where you're going to absorb the heat or the cold much more efficiently. Yeah.
Okay. Has anybody ever told you that you resemble Celine Dion?
I think we can close and I'll go home now, okay? Now we're gonna have me singing. That's the next thing I need. So please, our beautiful musician.
Thanks. I was just going to share something. Like from my Finnish culture, we do the sauna and then we go into very cold water. And then I found that I was beginning to have like from the heat, like rashes. And then I started doing that again in my life and they disappeared. And my son was getting the same type of things. And then I started doing the sauna and jumping into the
Yes.
ice, and then those just the heat in my body started disappearing. So I know everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
Sharing, there's other different.
That is a beautiful practice, and I hear a lot of wonderful things about it. And why we're at it for the furnace man. Are you familiar with Shiktari, the cooling breath? The one where you're hissing, receiving the air in, and then breathing out through the nose?
A long time ago.
Also curl your tongue.
Or curl the tongue if you can do that. I can't not do the curling the tongue. So it's just receiving the air through the cheeks like you're smiling, yeah? Bring it up and then breathe out through the nose. Let that heat come out the nose. So maybe these little mini pauses where I suggested shifting the mindset could be initiated by the cooling breath. 5 minutes for every 55 minutes. I do that, by the way. I need it. I have a lot of heat too. We're good. Yes, we're good. Tongue scraper? How to do it? Absolutely, it's the least I can do. So the tongue scraper, so it's like this wire, this U-shaped wire that you take with your thumb and your index finger on the both edges, and you take it all the way to the back of your tongue. And then from the back of the tongue, you travel that wire down to the tip. And you see some excess yuck there. You clean it out with water real quick, do it again, third time. The excess should be removed by then, and then you're good to go. Just put it there by your toothbrush and you're done until the next time. Most people like to do the tongue scraping with every time they brush their teeth. I would say for a starting point, just do it first thing in the morning so that, again, you get used to learning about your tongue. And although you're doing it firmly, not too hard. You don't want your tongue bleeding, okay? Not too hard.
Before or after you brush your teeth?
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
This is a simple question, I think. For a Pitta person, say they eat in the summer, builds up, of course, the summer builds up more heat, so it may be more difficult. So therefore, in the winter with cold weather, it's good for a Pitta person, apparently, for the advance to the cold much more easier. Is that correct?
Indeed. Yes. So, although there is a season, a time of day, a time of life that aggravates each one of the doshas, there's also the season, the time of day, and the time of life that will restore each dosha, will make it easier for that dosha or less likely that they will go out of balance. Of course. The other one didn't count as a question because you're offering service, right? So now you finally get to ask a question.
Osteoarthritis.
Yes.
Speak up.
Our,
I have lots of arthritis. My back, my hips, my knees, and my feet. Would that be like something off that could, because I'm trying to, I mean, I know it's hereditary, I know it's repetitive movement, but like being, you know, doing 25 years old.
sure. I hear you, honey. Yes, yes, yes.
Could it be something like, something's off there that's helping or?
So arthritis, like many symptoms, arthritis could be either induced by excess vata, because vata lives in the joints, too much air, or if it's more of an inflammatory type, which I suspect that that's the case, is because of excess pitta. So less inflammatory foods, less heating foods should definitely have an impact on your joints, should definitely bring some ease. And joint mobility as well, because that heat gets what? Accumulates and gets trapped in there. So to just have a routine where you are working the joints, one by one, working the joints, one by getting some circulation. Yeah, getting some circulation to have that excess heat or excess air have a chance to dissipate. Yeah. And then there's some beautiful oils too that you can add.
What about thyroid issues? How can you balance that? You know, lots of women has.
So thyroid is also pitta related. Yeah. And the more, so this kind of gets into a little bit more advanced area. So I don't know that we're going to go into that so much. But what I will say is this. Little simple improvements in lifestyle will remove that excess burden to the degree that just that alone will have an impact. So looking at those 3 pillars, which one is in need of greater attention right now, giving that attention and observing, you know. And then of course following up as needed because you need your thyroid's working well. Yeah.
Wanted to share this past winter I spent at an Ayurvedic clinic.
Oh, great.
It was interesting.
Did you do a panchakarma?
Yeah, it was in India. And the Vajja, you know, we talk, and they really didn't focus on yoga or meditation much. And from their viewpoint, you needed to become knowledgeable and balance yourself Ayurvedically before even starting yoga and meditation. But I don't want to put that burden on everyone here because I know myself, I have a long ways to go to balance myself and really know myself Ayurvedically. But I'm a practitioner of meditation and yoga, so
But it does.
I can understand it.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
Absolutely. Because the better support our bodies have, the better support our minds have, the better support our emotions have, the more accessible our spiritual path becomes.
And it's really interesting to spend time with Dr. Ladd, who's a foremost Ayurvedic practitioner.
So the on the resources, the little man from India that I have there, that's Dr. Ladd. He's a doctor from India. He's a precious, precious teacher.
But so interesting, I've been with him where he's been teaching, lecturing, and he'll catch himself in like the middle of the lecture and he'll say, he'll notice an imbalance in himself. And I said, here he is up on stage teaching, you know, and normally it has something to do with what he's teaching, and he'll reflect on himself. And he said, I need to do whatever. Yeah. So it's just really the
So,
tune, you know.
so much. I mean, I remember one time Dr. Ladd came to lecture for us, and he had just flown in that day, and he's just this tiny little vata thing, and he is so precious. And he said to us, I just, in his cute accent, I just ate butter on the plane all ride long, because that was his way of grounding, of finding a way to get a little bit more stable so that he could come and teach straight out of a flight, right? Because someone who already has a lot of air in them needed the butter, the heaviness, in order to be centered enough to then share his wisdom. So how are we doing? It's 3:30. It's time for Qigong, is it? 3:45. So I guess if anybody has any more questions, we can take them. Muktima.
Like for people who are Vata, primary Vata,
Primary Vata.
and would he more root vegetables off of grounding?
So vegetables in general will be lighter, but root vegetables will be more grounding, yes. But then also the way that you're cooking those vegetables, that those vegetables have more oils in them. And then to make sure that you can digest them properly, to add some spices that will keep that Agni, that digestive fire, working.
And don't drink cold water while you're eating.
And don't drink cold water while you're eating. It's so tempting, right? When it's so hot like this that you just want to have a big cold drink. But to the degree that you can handle setting that aside during your meal, that will be of immense benefit to your Agni, to your digestion.
You talk about water. Is it best to have water after you eat dinner or before you eat dinner or during?
You see, your food typically will have some moisture in it. If you're a Pitta, you can get away with a drier food. If you're a Kapha, you can get away with a even more drying food. But in general, a moist meal is very comforting and nourishing to our system. So typically you have enough, but perhaps a cup of tea with your meal will do the trick. But saving your larger consumption of hydration separate from the meal is a good idea, yes. It's rare that I'll drink something with my meal. The tea sometimes before or after, yeah. And people always find that to be so strange. Well, we're not, I have appreciated you all so much. Thank you for bringing your curiosity here. Keep up this sense of wonder. Where there is wonder, there's nothing that weighs us down. So keep it coming. Be curious. Continue with your beautiful practices. And I am just, as I said earlier, just so deeply honored to be here with you today and to have had this little window of opportunity to share what I love so much. Thank you. And a big thanks to Purnima, who's been, dinner's at 5:30. Little scraps of paper for a little puja. How wonderful. That's great. And then we have Swami for a beautiful kirtan at 7:30. Okay. Yes, I will. So we'll close. Yes.
Very much. Slowly burning in the fire, things we want to get rid of. Can I close my?
Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, may thy light shine forever on the sanctuary of our devotion. And may we be able to awaken thy love in all hearts. Om Shanti, peace, shalom.